All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I'm your host, Jessica King, and I just wanted to quickly thank you for joining us today. It's hard to believe, but summer is coming to an end, and it's time to start gearing up for another school year. Today, we'll have pediatrician Dr. Kathryn Wright go over some ways on how to transition from summer to school easily and comfortably for you and your kiddos. Here's a little more info on today's speaker. Dr. Wright is board certified by the American Board of Pediatrics. Her clinical interests include ADHD, obesity, newborns, and breastfeeding. She joined Kelsey-Seybold in July of 2015, which means that you just celebrated your 2-year anniversary, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And she practices at the Tanglewood Clinic location. Don't forget, we'll be taking any questions that you have at the end of the webinar. If a question happens to pop up, just type it into your question box and we'll do our best to address it after Dr. Wright's presentation. And now I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Wright.
Thank you, Jessica. So every year whenever I have my kids come in for their back to school physicals, everyone talks to me about how they've gotten out of their normal routine. Everyone's staying up too late, they're eating junk food, and they're not being as physically active as they normally are. So today we wanted to kind of talk about how to get back into your normal routines for school, establishing that bedtime, getting your morning routine ready, and trying to get back on track with a healthy diet. So, like we discussed, especially during summer, kids tend to go to sleep later. They wake up, typically late morning or early afternoon, especially for my older teenagers that I see. And whenever we have to think about starting school again, we want to gradually get back into our normal routine. Typically, if you wait until right before school starts, it's a lot harder for your kids to be adjusted, and that's difficult because then when they do go back to school, they're not able to pay attention as well. So I do recommend that we try to get back in our normal bedtime routine about a week or two before school starts. For our older teenagers, that might be, I have some going to sleep at like midnight or 1 in the morning. So for about a week, maybe each night, try to move up bedtime 30 minutes to an hour to kind of get them back on a regular routine. And again, sleep is extremely important. Kids who don't get enough sleep have a harder time processing information the next day, and also it affects our appetite. So if you don't get enough sleep, we tend to overeat also. So some things that we can do to help with our bedtime also, and additionally to going to bed on time. For my older kids who have smartphones or tablets, I do recommend that parents take them out of the rooms at night because oftentimes they're staying up really late on their tablets, and that bright light from the screen keeps the kids awake so their brains can't go to sleep. So I usually recommend the parents take them into their rooms to charge at night so those aren't keeping our kids up. So if we're able to go to sleep on time, then hopefully we can start waking up at a normal time for school. So again, for about a week before school starts, try to start waking them up at that normal time so they can get in their routine, and have them practice getting ready for school as well. So brushing their teeth, taking a bath or a shower if they do that in the morning, eating breakfast, and still having time to not be rushed in the morning. Especially for our younger kids, I think it helps to establish the routine early because children thrive in a structured environment, and if they feel like they're back to their school routine, they're going to be a lot more comfortable going to school again. There are a couple of tips that you can try to do as well to make the morning less hectic. So, picking out the clothes the night before, trying to make your lunch the night before, and then for parents as well, we want to make sure that we get a good breakfast in the morning before school. So if parents are rushed trying to plan that the night before, or also some schools offer lunch, and that might be an option for you as well. Additionally, for our kiddos, we want to make sure we set our alarm clock the night before, and if you have a younger kid who hasn't used an alarm clock, it might be a good time to start teaching them how to do that so that they can learn how to wake on their own and get ready and not always depend on our parents to wake us up. So breakfast is extremely important. That's why they offer it at school, because kids who don't eat breakfast tend to not be able to pay attention in class as well. And we want to make sure that we are ready to go and energized for learning. So, try to get breakfast at home or at school. You can check the school's menu and see if they have some healthy options that you want your child to have that day. And if they don't, then I would recommend eating at home or packing a lunch for them so that they have a healthy option. And when we look at our plate whenever we're eating, we want at least half of it to be fruits and vegetables, a quarter of it to be protein, and a quarter to be carbohydrates. So we want to make sure we're getting those healthy foods in as well. So just some healthy eating tips in general. When we're eating our carbohydrates, we want them to be whole grains. We don't want our white processed bread because it's not as good for us. And we want those fruits and vegetables to be half of our meal, so we're having 3 to 5 servings a day. Additionally, we want to try to limit our unhealthy fats, those saturated fats in our diet. The saturated fats are the ones that are solid at room temperature. You want to have healthy fats, the unsaturated fats that are typically liquid at room temperature. So that's things that you'll find in nuts, fish, avocados, olive oil, those kind of things. And additionally, we want to drink water and low-fat milk. We want to avoid our sweetened drinks, so no sodas or juice on a regular basis. Those are just for special occasions like parties. Okay. And I always discuss with my parents that healthy eating isn't just something for your kid to do. It's definitely a family effort. Whenever you go to the grocery store, you need to prepare what you're going to buy, have your list ready so that you're only buying healthy options and that you're not having things that are unhealthy in the household, because then your kids are going to gravitate towards those instead of the healthy options. A couple of things when you do go to the store, again, buying those whole grain carbohydrates or bread, trying to replace your white rice with brown rice, purchasing lean meats. And then for children under the age of 2, they do need more fat for their brain development, so they should be on whole milk unless your pediatrician says otherwise. But for our older kids, they are hopefully on lower fat dairy products. Additionally, if you're going to be, going to the grocery store, try to get some fruits or vegetables that are easy for you to prepare at home. Maybe put them into small baggies so that when your kid does want a snack, they have a healthy snack available for them to grab out of the fridge. And speaking of healthy snacks, some ideas that you can try to use are, carrot sticks with maybe some hummus, doing some preferably fresh over dried fruit, some low-fat popcorn, or you can also do some frozen fruit, so some frozen banana, grapes, those freeze very well and are an easy, quick snack for kids. Nuts are also a very good, healthy snack for them to have as well. And I know that sometimes it can be hard for our kids to eat these healthier food options, so sometimes you have to be a bit creative, especially for our younger kids. If you can make the food into fun shapes, they're much more likely to eat it than if it's kind of not as exciting looking. Additionally, especially the toddler, sometimes will have a sauce that they really like, and so even if they're dipping something weird like a bell pepper into ketchup, if that's the way they like it and that's the way they will eat it, that's one good way to get a healthy snack into them. And, especially for our younger kiddos that are a little picky, you still want to give them choices, but they have to be both choices that you're okay with. So if you say, oh, do you want a snack? You can say, do you want carrots or apples, so that they can pick one of those healthy options and not say, oh, I want chips. We don't want to have the chips. But you do have to use your creativity. You can do ants on the logs, those kind of things, or make fun faces or animals with their food. And it makes it a lot more enjoyable. Other things that we want to consider when we go back to school include making sure we're organized, that we've gotten all of our school supplies, talking with your child about getting back into the routine and being excited about school, because we want it to be a positive experience. Most schools have a school orientation where you can meet with the teacher and see their new classroom, get all of their books ahead of time. That way they feel more prepared whenever school's about to start. So especially as we prepare to go back to school, make sure we have our school list of anything that we need there. You can even make a to-do list so that you feel ready to go. Also, it helps for the family all to be on the same page. So some families will have a whiteboard in the kitchen where they write down everyone's schedules, or for our more tech-savvy families, sometimes having a family calendar on your smartphone can be beneficial as well, so everyone knows what everyone else is doing. And you additionally want to prep things at home. So for instance, the closet, making sure that our clothes for school are available, so it's easy to get dressed in the morning. We're not spending a whole lot of time agonizing over that. For our school supplies, most schools have a list that they need for what school supplies, including notebooks, pencils, pens, anything that the school classroom might need, including markers, construction paper, all sorts of things. And so try to get out there early to get your school supplies so that it's not too picked over. Also keep in mind that your teachers always appreciate a little extra. I know, especially with like paper towels and sanitizing wipes, those are always appreciated. And it's also nice to have a bit of extra supplies at home as well, so that if there's any projects that have been forgotten until the last minute, you're prepped and you don't have to run out in the middle of the night. And most kids do like school. Again, structured environments are very beneficial for our kiddos. So try to have a positive attitude. Don't be sad that they're going back. Say, oh, aren't you excited to go back to school? You loved it last year. We're going to have so much fun. So you want it to be a fun time for them, and have a positive outlook on that, and say, oh, you're going to learn so many more things this year. It's going to be great. And by having a positive attitude yourself, your kid will pick up on that and hopefully have the same type of views. And then when you meet with a teacher, hopefully you can introduce your child to their new teacher so they feel comfortable with them. Especially for some of my shyer kids, they might not open up right away, but after some time, they typically feel more comfortable around their teacher and will talk a little bit more with them. So try to start that relationship early on if possible. And if your child does have any special needs that they need to have addressed while they're at school, or if they are particularly, shy, I would discuss that with the teacher so that they can do things to help your child thrive in their school environment. And then, of course, before we go back to school, we want to make sure that we get our annual checkup at the doctor's office. Also, make sure we go to the dentist to have our annual teeth cleaning and our check for any cavities. Whenever our kids come in for their yearly physicals, we do also do our sports physicals. So if your kids are playing any sports, we want to make sure that their muscular exam is completely normal so they are clear to play sports and be active. And discuss any concerns that you have about your child with your pediatrician. One of the reasons I love doing the summer physicals is because we not only do your sports physical, but we can address other things that are going on with your health, making sure we're growing appropriately, that we're developing normally, and then we can address any issues such as weight or diet in that visit, versus, if you had a physical done at school that might not necessarily have been just addressed. And we can also make sure we're up to date on all of our vaccines. And speaking of, make sure we get our vaccines, and we want to get our regular vaccines at each checkup, and then the flu vaccine typically comes out in September or October. You want to get it as early as possible before flu season hits, because once it hits, it's a lot harder to be well protected. Okay. Are there any questions?
All right, I actually want to start us off, and I want to go back to the physicals. How soon does a sports physical need to be done before school starts? Can it be done like at the beginning of summer, or does it need to be done at the end of summer, closer to school?
So the sports physical can definitely be done at the beginning of summer. So typically the week or two before school are pretty busy at your pediatrician's office as everyone's trying to get their sports physical. So I do encourage people to plan ahead and try to get in early so that they're not trying to beat the rush and get an appointment at the last minute.
Can you go over some of the things that are conducted in a sports physical, just so you get a better idea of what you're coming in for?
Of course. So when kids come in for their sports physical, As part of our regular physical, I like to discuss school, how it went last year, make sure we're addressing any learning issues.
Okay.
Additionally, I also go over their growth, our diet, our exercise patterns. I screen for diabetes and obesity, and I check all their vitals, their blood pressure, their pulse, their respiratory rate, their temperature. So that's kind of our normal checkup that we'll do. And then in addition to that, we do a full comprehensive cardiac exam, listening to the heart laying, sitting, and standing, to make sure there's not any heart murmurs or anything that needs to be evaluated by a cardiologist prior to sports clearance.
Okay.
We also, we do a full body check. We listen to your lungs, we check your head, your ears, your nose, your throat, your stomach, and then as part of the sports physical, we make sure that all of our muscle strength is intact, that our reflexes are normal, and then additionally for our boys, we have to check for hernias and make sure that's not going to be an issue with sports as well.
Gotcha.
And then I have a question that asks if all weekend clinics offer physicals on Saturday. Currently, yes, I believe. So during the summer especially, we do offer physicals on Saturday clinic. I think those schedules typically open about a month in advance, and you can schedule them either through the call center at Kelsey-Seybold 713-442-0000 or through your My Kelsey online account, and that should be available for you as well. The physicals on the weekends are very handy for our parents who are working so that they are able to get that done before school starts.
Can I go back to you asking the kids for a learning kind of exam? What do you look for and what can you find and address on learning capabilities?
So whenever I talk to kids about learning, usually I kind of ask how school went last year. How were our grades? Do we have difficulty with any subjects in particular? For instance, I have some kids who will say, oh, I had a hard time in reading this year, and then we try to figure out if maybe there could be some underlying problem like dyslexia, which might be affecting our reading ability.
Okay.
So we kind of determine based on that if maybe it's that we need extra tutoring, or maybe we need to be evaluated by a developmental specialist or a psychiatrist to evaluate for things like dyslexia, to see if that's happening or if we're having attention problems that could be affecting our schoolwork as well. And so if we think that's the case, most of our pediatricians here at Kelsey can screen for attention deficit disorders.
Okay.
And we can do that. But what you typically do is give you a questionnaire for both you and the teacher, and they fill that out and you come back for a follow-up appointment and we go over those results with you. If we think that it's more of a learning disability, usually we'll refer you either to a developmental specialist or to the school where they do screening for those things, to kind of investigate that further, because we want your kids to thrive and do well in school. So it's important that we address those issues and concerns as soon as possible.
Okay. I have a quick question on, so kind of going back to school supplies and when you're buying your right backpack for your kid at the beginning of the year, is there a weight-bearing limit that a child should be wearing their backpack? Should they not stuff their backpack with so many things just to cause future back problems or strain?
So I don't know if there's a specific weight limit itself, and that also probably depends on the size of your child. But whenever most kids wear their backpacks, not everyone is wearing them the appropriate way, so make sure that they're wearing both straps over their shoulders. Some also have a clip so that it distributes the weight more evenly across your chest. For our younger kids, especially if they have a lot of books, you might want to look into a rolling backpack to release some of that stress. But you're right, if they are having back pain from their backpack, we need to see if we can find another solution.
Gotcha. All right. I think we have a little tip from somebody at the Fort Bend Clinic. And they do physicals from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays in case anybody is out in the Fort Bend area. All right, well, I think that's actually all the questions that we have, unless Dr. Wright, do you have anything else you want to let people know before school starts? Just vaccines and...
I mean, before school does start, I would just make sure we come and get all of our vaccines. Usually prior to 7th grade, we have some vaccines that are due, or they're due at 11, so that's an important age to come in. Also at 16, most kids get another vaccination. Some parents aren't sure when those vaccines are due,
Okay.
so those are important to get done.
Do you know which vaccines they are?
Yes.
Okay.
So at 11, we do 3 vaccines. We do the tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis booster, the meningitis vaccine, and we also do the HPV vaccine.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And then at 16 is a booster of the meningitis vaccine.
Okay.
Any new vaccines this year? In the past year, there was also Trumemba, which is meningitis type B vaccine. That is an optional vaccine prior to going to college.
Oh.
So that is a possible vaccine as well at 16 or 17 before your kids go to college. So I do encourage you to discuss that with your pediatrician if you have a college-bound kid.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question here. Are you accepting new patients currently?
I am. I'm accepting new patients, and I'm at the Tanglewood location in pediatrics.
Great. All right. Well, I think on that note, we're just going to go ahead and end our webinar, and that's going to conclude it. So I want to say a very big thank you to you, Dr. Wright, for doing such a great job and giving us all these great tips for getting back into our school routine. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining us today. We hope that some of this info will help you transition from summer to school in a smooth way with you and your kids. And be sure to join us for our webinar next month. Flu and U immunizations featuring pediatrician Dr. Gurji, and we will go over what vaccines more in detail that your child should be getting and when and why. So if you have any questions about future vaccines or current vaccines that you want to ask about, this would be a great one to tune into. And don't forget to follow us on social media and join in on the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all next month.